Good evening, and welcome to sadly, our last virtual solo instrument composition workshop. And I shouldn't say last for this particular run of this program. These workshops take place as part of the Elizabeth Henriksen Mentorship Program, which our first session of is coming to a close around the end of this year. My name is Megan DiGiorgio. I'm Director of Education Advancement for Boulanger Initiative. So really excited to welcome you to this event. If you haven't seen any of these events so far, we have 4 others, and they're all still up on our YouTube and Facebook pages if you want to go watch previous videos of this program, but with different solo instruments. And basically, what they all are is an opportunity for young composers aged approximately 13 to 18 to write short little pieces for a solo instrument, get them performed by a professional performer live, and then get workshopped by a professional composer, one of our composer mentors from our mentorship program. So this evening is very exciting because both pieces that we're going to hear were written specifically for this workshop by our 2 young composers. So that'll be really exciting. They're brand new, never been seen or heard before. You're witnessing the premiere. Real quick, before we get started, I do just want to mention Boulanger Initiative's end of year fundraising campaign. So between now and the end of the year, we have an up to $5,000 matching pledge. So your donation will get doubled if you donate before the end of the year. So, programs like this, the ability to do this free of charge to our students is made possible through donations, and support from our community. So please consider donating so that we can keep doing stuff like this. Oh, but you didn't log in to hear me talk, so I will just go right ahead and invite our first composer, Chloe, onto the stage. Chloe, before we hear your piece, where are you currently in the world right now?
I'm currently in Greenville, South Carolina.
Awesome. So you can go ahead and tell us a little bit about your piece before we get started, if you like, and then I will just leave it to the 3 of you.
Awesome. So, a song for the unconventional ones. I wrote this just as a piece dedicated to those who aren't afraid to show multiple facets of themselves. And when I wrote this, I was actually spending a lot of time with my family. And usually for like certain family gatherings, like you only see them like so many times and they have this certain presentation of themselves. But for this particular instance, I got to learn more about these certain members of my family that I haven't really learned about before, which is something that I really appreciated. So that was the inspiration for this piece, and I hope you enjoy listening to it.
Thank you so much, Chloe. I wanted to quickly introduce myself. I'm Alexandra Gardner, the composer mentor for Boulanger Initiative, and Sarah Hetrick, saxophonist extraordinaire, is going to perform Chloe's piece. I live in Baltimore, and Sarah is in Texas.
Yeah.
Claps. Yay. Awesome. This is a wonderful piece. Congratulations, Chloe.
Thank you.
How did it feel to hear it live?
It felt great. Thank you so much, Sarah, for playing it. I loved your interpretation. It really was fantastic. So thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm curious, Chloe. What is your primary instrument?
My primary instrument is cello.
Right on. Well, I think that was a really, really nice version of the piece. I'm curious, did anything surprise you about it when you heard it?
I guess one thing that might have surprised me is just, I guess, the length in time, and just like how, like, in certain sections I noticed that there was like a bit more time that was taken, but I wasn't really opposed to hearing that in the piece. I actually quite liked it.
Nice. And Sarah, how was it to play it? How'd that feel?
Good. I really like the character shifts that Chloe included in here, where it becomes less bright and less assertive, and then with the somber and meek tone. Hopefully I was able to communicate those, but that's probably my favorite part about playing this piece, is that you can definitely see the evolution, especially as she was speaking about the piece initially. It makes a lot more sense now to me why those character shifts are in there.
Yeah, I really one of the things I really appreciated right away when I looked at it is the sort of clarity of form that you have in there, and there's a clear arc, and you're establishing a mood right away, and it changes, and you're very clear about how you would like it to change through the course of the piece, and I think that's really nice, the way that you do that. The brightness and assertiveness, kind of it starts on a high note, and then it felt like a wave, sort of crashing in the ocean, and then like being absorbed into the ocean at the end, to me. So I really appreciate like the sort of arc format that you used here. Did you do that intentionally, or did it just kind of turn out like that? I'm curious about your process. Like, how did you work out the shape of it?
So all of the markings that were in there, that was my intention when I wrote the piece. Like, as far as contrast went, I wanted it to be like mainly focused on mood. So I think, like, for me, like when I was writing the piece, I think the two largest contrasts that I could establish was like something bright versus something like a bit darker or a bit like more somber. So that's what I tried to communicate.
Yeah, that's great. I think that you definitely accomplished that very well. The articulations in the piece, were you happy with how those turned out, Chloe?
I was happy with the tenuto articulations. I was imagining the staccato articulations just to be like a bit shorter than what I heard in the first playthrough.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Sarah, you want to give it another go?
Sure.
Just for
you want them drier, more like my tendency is always to play everything as pretty and long as possible, so that's on me. But I think sometimes when I play music written by string players, this is a common theme for me. I think I never quite get the articulation they're looking for because it's so different, wind versus pressure of the bow. So but yeah, so a little bit drier.
Yes.
Shorter. Okay.
Is there, hang on, Sarah, Chloe, is there anything else that you would like to try? If Sarah's going to do a do-over here, is there anything else that you would like to look at?
I think
Did you want that from... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think at measure 19, like, it might just be that, like, I'm hearing this from, like, a stream and, like, the audio might be, like, a bit off just because of where we're at. But I think I would like that section, like, a bit quieter, if that is feasible to do.
Yes, I can do that. All right. Let me switch my mics real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Those were definitely shorter staccati. What? How'd that feel? Better, Chloe?
Yes, I liked what I heard the second time a lot better.
Okay. Welcome to the rehearsal process. This is how we do it. Excellent. Let's see. Sarah, do you have any comments about articulations or anything at all that's going on for you?
I would say, sorry.
Oops, very quiet. Yeah.
There we go. How's that?
Good.
Okay.
Perfect.
I would say with the articulation, just coming from a wind player perspective, and maybe I need to read things more literally, but I would say as much descriptor as you can give to the staccato if you want them more dry, because as far as staccato goes, I have about 5 different ones I can use for this. So I would encourage you to be as specific as you want there. So if you want it dry, shorter, go ahead and put those descriptors in. It's going to give me a better idea without talking to you. Of course, hopefully performers that are working on your music will talk to you about it. That's what we want, right? A good relationship like that. But some descriptors like that would be, I think, beneficial there. I think the only saxophone-y thing that I'm seeing is that low B flat at mezzo forte. It's fine. We'll do it. It's totally fine, I think. But there are challenges associated with that lowest range, especially in the lower end of dynamics. And you may already know this, so if you just tell me to get over it and just play the mezzo forte there. But always something to consider, though. In that lower range of the saxophone, the lower range of dynamics are much more challenging, especially coming off of a rest there. But other than that, I think it's really idiomatic. I think your writing is very clear. It's easy for me to pick this up and get I think, relatively close to what you're looking for. So I think that's always something I'm looking for as a performer, that I can see pretty clearly what your intent was. And I think you've done that. So congratulations. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, the idea to be as specific as you can about whatever it is, if it's articulations or phrasing or whatever, I think is really important. And I talk to composers about this all the time, is, ideally you have a relationship with your performer and you can talk these things out and say, oh, I'd love this a little drier or a little something else. However, there are times when, you don't have access to the performer doesn't have access to you necessarily. They might just have the music and be doing it how they do it. So the more descriptors that you can put in, if you have a specific thing that you want, the better. And you're already like well on your way to doing that with your instructions for mood and everything. And I think just, the instruction of like dry and very short for the staccato was going to really help you get exactly what you want from this, whether if somebody's playing it who you don't know. Another thing regarding playing works that people might, a work of yours that somebody might have and be playing, is that one thing that's really important is to put on the page what instrument this is for. We know, because obviously we're workshop, we know it's for saxophone. But at first I was like, wait, what saxophone is this for? Which saxophone? If I didn't know that that our workshop was for alto saxophone, I would wonder. And then, always good to put at like the top left-hand corner at the indent on the first staff, like what the instrument is. Very important thing that's often overlooked, because also if somebody like drops their music, somebody's going to find it and be like, who's this? Who's it for? So little practical things are good too. Chloe, do you have any questions about saxophone that came up during your composition for this? I understand that you composed this especially for this workshop. So Sarah is like the one to ask all your questions to about saxophone. So come at us with the questions if you have some.
So Sarah, I know you mentioned that when it comes to staccatos, like you have like 5 different kinds that you use. So in instances when you see like a piece of music like with the articulation and like when it's not like specifically stated, like what goes through your mind as you decipher like what kind of articulation you have to use within the context of the piece?
Sure. I think I said 5. That's an arbitrary number. I'll just put that out there. But I think, the style that, first of all, as a performer, and this is a thing that I need to constantly be working on as far as like what my preferences are, like as far as tone color and timbre and all those things. I'm always battling what I want to hear versus the intent of the composer. So I think my personal challenge is I always want to play legato. I always want to play slurred because I like sounding pretty, and so I'm always having to battle that. But I think looking at the articulation in the context of the entire piece, so including the other articulations that are present, and of course also being informed by the mood that you've written here with brightness and assertiveness. I think assertiveness to me is something a little bit heavier, a bigger shape as far as the shape of the sound goes. And so when I was doing this, it's juxtaposed by the slur, of course, but in the context with those slurs, I wasn't initially thinking something so drastic, especially because not necessarily angular, I'll say, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what was informing that. I would say different ways that you can write it would be like an articulation that you're familiar with. You can put a rooftop in an accent. Like to me, that would be very a lot more forward of an articulation, meaning like, and I'll try not to hurt anybody's ears, but so again, rooftop with a versus a dry staccato like we talked about. Versus a legato staccato, which is, I think, initially what I was playing. And I think everyone might interpret those a little differently, especially whether you're a string player or you're a wind player. But I think those are some things to consider as far as, so when I was looking at this articulation, I think that I chose that bit longer because of the heaviness of the word assertiveness, I think, initially. And then I used some with less brightness, and then somber and meek. So we're going like I would think darker, and again darker. What does that even mean? But I think does that all make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
that does.
Okay.
And as a cellist, I understand the need for lyricism, just making everything sound like pretty, like all the time, and all that.
Totally. And I think too, just, and again, I don't want to throw out a blanket statement. Of course, the way that I think about things as a wind player is not the same as how every other saxophonist or every other wind player thinks about things. But I think, if I can make a gross generalization, typically the staccato articulations are going to be much more clear and much drier on a string instrument. So I would say, like, if you're going to write something, make the directions extreme compared to what they are in string instruments for wind instruments. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense.
Okay, yeah.
It's so good that you wrote, Chloe, that you wrote something for a completely different like type of instrument, especially for this. That's great.
I think you've done a great job.
Yeah, totally.
Is this your first time writing for wind?
Yes, this is my very first time.
Awesome.
Nice job.
Fabulous. Very good job. Sarah, do you have an opinion about, and I'm asking because I kind of do, but maybe it's just a silly composer thing. Do you have an opinion about the instructions being underneath the staff as opposed to above the staff, the brightness and assertiveness stuff? I think because the work is one page, I think maybe it doesn't matter, but.
Yeah, I think logistically, having worked with the nightmare that is Finale and Sibelius, I think like trying to squeeze both of those in at the top, I understand the logistics of that might be annoying. I don't think I have a preference. I think typically if I see them on the top, I'm more likely to follow them right away. On top of whatever, especially as a saxophonist, I'm constantly, most of my notes are above the staff anyway. So I'm already looking up there. So I think maybe above, but of course, I think it's my job as a performer to be looking all over the place and making sure I'm following your directions. So, yeah, maybe it's just a performer to performer thing. I'm not sure, but I think maybe I'm a very visual person, so proximity means a lot to me. So if you want, if I whatever note I'm playing, I want to be able to see proximity wise exactly. This belongs to this. This belongs to this. You know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what notation program are you using, Chloe?
I'm using MuseScore.
Oh, okay, right on. Okay, that's great. Yeah, I think ideally, if the instructions were to be above the staff, they would just instrumentalists. It would be like a little bit less work for a player to really pay attention because they'll be like, "Oh, okay, here we go," you know. But it works this way. You could easily, to give yourself some space, you could reduce the space between the staves just a little bit to give yourself some room at the top for the top stave to just put that instruction underneath like the andante moderato instruction, and it wouldn't be too much. Like you've said, the italic sort of contrast is good. And that would work to move things up. But anyway, nerdy composer notation stuff. Chloe, what composers are you into? Tell us. Who do you listen to? What are you into?
I would say just about like anything and everything. I think the first composer I like really got into was Caroline Shaw, who I first learned about through my composition teacher, actually. And the thing that I admire most about her, and especially how she like notates everything, is that like she's not afraid to like express herself through her music. And she does that in some very unique ways that I didn't really think would be possible before, which has like influenced me to kind of like to not be afraid to put myself into the music that I write.
That's amazing. Yes, that is true. Yes. Turns out you can do anything you want. You really can. Yeah. And it's but it's also really great to see it done in a score by a composer that you admire and respect and all of that. Like the more that I think as you look at more and more scores and find out more and more about composers, you'll see that this especially right now is a time when you can just do things how you want to do things. I mean, you're already well on your way. I really like the way you're using language for your instructions and stuff. It's very clear. So, yeah. Excellent. Chloe, do you have any more questions for us about your piece or saxophone?
I actually wanted to ask Sarah who her favorite composer was and why this composer would be her favorite.
In general, just for saxophone, I guess I'll tell you a few composers that I've worked with, which I think that's pretty indicative of the kind of music that I like, or who I'm working with currently. I think I'm like you. There's nothing really that I won't play. I don't like listening to country music. I'll be honest. I'm sorry if I think that, but that's, a whole different thing for me as a performer. Alex is like, I love it. No, I'm just kidding.
Honestly, me too. It's okay. It's totally
great.
Fine. You're not alone.
That aside, of course, Alex and I have worked together quite a bit. I've played a lot of Alex's music. I love working with Alex because she's really open as a composer, and she's very people focused. I think some composers are actually, you know what? I won't even say that. I think I like working with people who are interested in a relationship with me as a friend and as a collaborator. And those are really my favorite people to work with. I think that, especially in 2021, I think I have a really unique opportunity, especially as a saxophonist, to be a first name basis, like constantly talking to my collaborators. And so a lot of the composers that I listen to, as well as the composers that I work with, are pretty much guided by that principle of talking to them in person or virtually, talking about their music and not about their music, about their lives. But a few composers other than Alex that I've worked with recently, I just commissioned Jose Martinez. He is a composer. He's based out of Maine right now, but we went to school together, and I hadn't commissioned anything from him while we were in school, and we're like, oh, we want to work together. So finally we are. His music's amazing. If you have not heard him or heard his music before, he's percussionist by trade. But so he's writing a piece for saxophone and percussion. Who else recently? I have the privilege of choosing a composer for, I do work with a competition for gender diverse and equity seeking saxophonists. And we commission a piece every few years. And the past two pieces were Angelica Negron and Gemma Peacock, and with, of course, some advisory help, I chose them to write these pieces, but I really respect both of them and their work. Really love them both as people and composers. Who else? Oh my gosh. I'll just stick it with that. If you want to, we can talk later about composers. I'm sure I could talk all day about this, but really, I think for me, it just comes down to that relationship that I build with the composer. And again, I'll really play anything. So as long as you're a good person, you're fun to be around.
Yeah, Angelica Negron and Gemma Peacock. If you don't know about them, Chloe, get on your Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, whatever it is, and check out their work. I'm sure there's plenty of cello stuff, and there's definitely saxophone stuff that they both have. Film scores, all the things. I think you would enjoy that. Yeah, so great. Chloe, congratulations. on your piece. Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you so much for writing it for us. That's very exciting.
Thank you for having me.
I will also just echo that applause. Yeah, really, really cool to hear that come to life. I will also use this brief interlude to to say sorry for not introducing you both myself. I should have done that while I was on screen before. Just slipped my mind somehow. And also, I didn't say where I am from or where I am currently. So I'm in Hyattsville, Maryland, which is just outside of DC. So I guess this is the part where we transition to our next composer. So I'd like to invite Soingtu on stage. Hello.
Hello.
Where are you coming from? Or where are you, I guess that's the full question.
Yeah, I'm currently in Misquachi, Waskahikan in Treaty 6 territory in Canada.
Awesome. That I don't know if that's the quite the farthest away we've had yet in these workshops, but like almost. It's definitely up there. Awesome. So just like with Chloe, if you want to talk a little bit about your piece before we hear it, and then I'll just leave you all to it.
Yes. So, first of all, hi to both of you. I'm very excited to be here and that you're playing my piece and everything. So, yeah. My piece is entitled Crane with a K. And it's, I wrote it especially for this workshop. And so, the parameter here was to make a piece that is 1 minute or less, which I thought was a very interesting challenge. So I started thinking about like what kind of sonic material can I have that I can explore in less than 1 minute. And so I had this idea of metamorphosis that I have been very fascinated with, and of silence also. And my piece is essentially a sonic interpolation between two different sound worlds. At first, it is sort of like this transcription of factory noise at a metal forming factory, and the ending soundscape is of birdsong. And these two sounds are both pretty like cliche, like this factory construction and then birdsong, and they are interpolated in the middle part. So like the middle 30 seconds are just like this transformation from one to the other. So at first I just started with making a partition of unity mathematically and defining at every point what sounds belong to which of these two sonic datasets. And then I sort of translated that into notation, but made it more intuitive so that it is not anymore defined strictly by the mathematical setup I had at first, but it is sort of like magical realism in that way. It is coming from very strict manipulations of data, but I've made it into something that is more intuitive. And I'm excited to hear it and hear your feedback. So because I'm still working on like the final draft. Yeah.
I would say, Santu, as I play this, please be open with me if you want a different sound with your graphic notation. I tried to keep true to your descriptors of the different samples that you used, but I don't think I'm always getting it. So be honest with me, okay?
Yay. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes.
So how'd that feel?
I think it was great. Thank you so much also for reading my handwritten notation and like putting so much. Yeah. So thank you for that. I appreciate your like dedication to this and everything. I think it was really exciting to hear it come to life.
I'm curious, this, you know, you've created a lot of space for a lot of sort of freedom in the score in a way, like freedom plus boundaries, which is really interesting. And I'm curious to know if you have like an idealized version in your head now that you have a score written out for it.
I have, in a sense, I have sort of like a few different idealized versions of this. I mean, of course, I'm thinking about all the sounds I'm coming from, but I'm giving this freedom on purpose for the performer to also put like their own intuition into it. So it's like I have these parameters set and then all the different possibilities of what it could be.
I love that. Yeah, I really appreciate that you make that possible for the performer. Sarah, how did it feel to play it and to work on it? Because yeah, I didn't time it, but I feel like I didn't time it, so I was like, this seems like a lot for a minute, but maybe it's not. I'm not sure. I didn't really time it. Tell me things.
Yeah, I think that was initially I was like, oh god, I have to fit this all into 1 minute. I was like, oh no. There's so much good stuff here, Sointu, that like I want it to be 10 minutes. And when I'm working on pieces like this that have, whether they're graphic or whether they're improvisation, I have a tendency to just draw it out longer and longer. So I think this could be easily a much, much longer piece. So I'll just say that in the first. I did a lot of it's one of the first thing our teachers tell us as a student, to make sure we look up all of the words, right? Make sure we know all the words. So that was my first job. And so I kind of started giggling to myself a little bit when I realized what your descriptors were. They were I was like, oh, these are Latin-y. I'm like, what is this? And then I realized looking it up. So I started compiling a bunch of sound samples using the different Greater Prairie Chicken. What else is in here? Baltimore Oriole, Arctic Warbler, American Three-Toed Woodpecker. What else? The Labrador Duck, which you're so clever. It's extinct. That's why it's silent. Loved that. What else? I'm probably missing some. And then you're more machine-like. So I was, I think probably my neighbors thought I was crazy. I was like listening to torches, sound samples, but that's the life we live, I guess. But yeah, I think your source material is great, and it was really fun for me to dive into that and to do that work on my end of making sure I knew what you were actually looking for.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that dedication. And that's very interesting because that's all those sounds are like the sound world I'm also coming from. And so I've been also spending so much time just watching videos of people handle like metal forming factory facilities. And
So too, I love the contrast so much of the bird song versus the factory sounds and everything. I think it really works. I'm happy that you have a Baltimore Oriole in there. That I looked that up and I was like, yes, Baltimore. I think it's really wonderful, the contrast of nature and technology that the sound worlds that you've brought together in a way that actually makes sense in the end. That's really satisfying. Hey, Boulanger folks, can we look at the first page of this score, or thank you very much. I think your notation and everything is really clear. It took me a minute for the measure numbers, the bubbles in the corners to realize it's repeated. So that's what's happening there. That took me a minute, but I think it all works really, it's really effectively. And you create a mood right away. So, and a lot of music doesn't do that. So, and I think you and Chloe share that tonight, is that, you just create a mood at measure 1. That's awesome. So I wonder, let's see, how did you, okay. So you had mathematical processes in place to create the structure of the work?
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about that for us?
So the first line is just this one sound world, which is all the factory noises, but in sort of like a magical realism way, where it's based on that, but then it's also become more musicalized. And then the last line on the second page is entirely bird sounds. And then the two middle ones, they are a transformation. So at first it's like a partition of unity. So at first it is 100% possibility for all the sounds to belong to the first one. At the end, it's 100% possibility to belong to the next one. And then in the middle, it is always more and more likely that all the sounds come from the next set of data. So it is just this process that I started with, and I ended up with a very detailed score, but then that I wanted to keep a sense of intuition. So I brought it back into this more visual sense, so that there is still that musically, and it's more emotionally connected.
That's great. I love that you did that you started with really with just the data, but then you kept it human in the end for us all. I think that's really a good idea. Is this a way that you generally compose? Is it a new thing that you're trying? What is your process usually like?
So I've worked with mathematical processing and with graphic notation before, and this is the first time I'm doing it this specific way, like using the notation that goes in boxes like that. But I've done similar things to this before.
Great. And do you have a primary instrument? What do you play?
I'm also a cellist.
You're also a cellist. All right. Cellist bringing the good music. That's right. Yeah. Sarah, what do you have more comments about instructions, things you would like more of, or things that could be clearer, or yeah, whatever you would like to share?
Yeah, I think spatially, Swantu, you've done a really nice job of like even though it's by hand, it's really clear proportionally duration. And I think as again, as a very visual person, I really appreciate that because it helps me especially be a little more accountable with the seconds, which I don't think I'm doing quite like maybe you have written here, but spatially that really is helpful for me. So the clarity of that is great. I would say there are some things like the repeats, even leading up the past week or so, there's times where I would still skip a repeat on accident. And so my parts always look horrendous, but I don't know if you can see like at the ends of my box, I'm like, come on, Sarah, repeat this thing. So you might consider making those repeats like just as big as the cell itself, just so we really don't miss that, because I think formally it's important for what you've written here. So, and then I think the multiphonic that you wrote in here, I had to change the fingering a bit for it to speak properly. So I was just wondering what resource is your go-to, or if you have one that your go-to for multiphonics.
So for Multiphonics, I've this one is just like one of my friends who plays saxophone was showing me all of them, and this one, it then might be that it worked better on their saxophone but than yours, but
yeah, definitely.
And
And
then
that will make a difference for sure.
Yes.
But so
Yes.
the book that I pulled it for you just to show you, but I don't know if this is mirrored or not, but this is the book that typically I would say is like pretty standard for composers to use. And they have in here, there's typically like corresponding fingerings that work. And again, different models of saxophones absolutely will need different fingerings some of the time, but I think these are pretty good standardized ones. So if you're not familiar, are you familiar with this? Am I?
I haven't seen this particular. But
yeah, it's
I have that
kind
one.
of expensive, so maybe ask for it for your birthday or something. I don't know. Yeah. It's really annoying how expensive it is, but I even had to be like, oh, fine, here's my money. But I would definitely recommend this one. And just for me, I play on a Yamaha saxophone, a custom EX2. That's not entirely important for you to know, other than it might be that your friend was playing on a Selmer or something else. But I added oh my goodness, this is hard to do. Can you? Maybe not. Oh my goodness. Okay, I will just tell you. On that fingering, I added the low B key and the low C key. And I just notate that as a B on the right and a C on the left. And of course, you can notate that with the actual fingering diagram as well. But that helped that speak for me. I think what else? Oh, the pitch bend on the low B flat, the first, or I guess the second cell you have. When I see pitch bend, I initially would think just bending the single pitch up a little bit and back down. That bottom, that's the lowest note on the saxophone, which I'm sure you know, has a lot less flexibility than other notes because it is so low. It's the entire saxophone, the entire tube we're playing. So if you want a single pitch bend, I'll try and do whatever you ask me to do. I'm always gonna go for it, but you're gonna get a lot less of a variation than maybe something above the staff as far as pitch bend goes. Another
Mhm.
option would be a type of like harmonic gliss or harmonic pitch scan, meaning that it would just go up to the next overtone off B flat if you want that differentiation and pitch upward.
Okay.
I think that might
Yes.
be a good option, if that makes sense.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, for this I was just going for a little like
Okay, just like a tiny bit,
okay.
like a quarter tone or something.
Like-
Okay, yeah, I think that's possible. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I talked too much.
Thank you.
Stop.
No.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, this is really valuable for making
This
out
is
more.
what we're here for.
Yeah, I think you should change those seconds to minutes and let's go again.
I know. So yes, let me set my +1 to the idea that this piece should be longer. This could be really like you've provided really in each measure like the opportunity for some really beautiful spacious activity. And I think if it were, it could be, yeah, I mean, it could be 10 minutes long. It could easily be 10 minutes long and just be a real, yeah, huge, awesome thing. So consider that. I mean, the contrast of freedom and boundary that you're using is really interesting. But I think that if you loosen up the time boundaries some, it's really going to come alive even more, the music that you're hoping for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be interesting to consider. Yeah, even just like maybe not even having time at all except the proportions.
Yeah, proportion. You could do it proportionately. That would be total, and then let the performer like figure out what that has definitely been done. That's a good idea, actually. I wonder, would you be open to this being done on other saxophones? Because I feel like it could be, right, Sarah? It's yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think you would get a different sound world depending on each one. I think it would be quite interesting, especially on Barry. Not that don't ask me. No, I'll do whatever you want me to. But Barry is probably, maybe ask Kyle Jones on Barry. I think maybe that would be good.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would be open. I was imagining alto saxophone, but I think a lot of this, it is subjective, so it could work well.
There's so much color too in the way that your score is. I mean, it's black and white, but there still is so much color in your language and in your drawings and everything. Yeah, I think it would be really exciting to make it bigger. I would love to see, could we look at the instructions page of the score, BI friends? Thank you very much. I just wanted to see
if you have any comments on how to make it clear, that would be wonderful also.
Yeah. Sarah, do you have any thoughts about this? Is there something that you would like to see that's missing? Or
I think just an option, something to consider. So like I created a sound sample like library as I was listening to this, and you might consider just giving that to the performer if there's something specifically you have in mind, because I think what I found as a sound sample and put in my Google Doc for each thing, I love this. Lincoln Electric Tomahawk 375 plasma cutter. Like that is so specific. Like I want to know what you were listening to, you know? So I think and of course if you want to leave that open to interpretation, there's that option as well. So it's ultimately up to you, but I would consider giving somebody with this piece a library of samples to for them to consider. If you want them to take them more literally, then if that's the case, if you want it more literally, I would definitely include that sample library.
That's a great idea. Yeah, definitely. That's a wonderful idea. Yeah, just include all the samples so that people can have an idea of what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting idea. Yeah, I could just like have all the sound samples possible for like all the
Because I mean, a lot of there's people who aren't necessarily going to do that work. Like Sarah does that work, but not everybody does. So I think it will you would get a lot more performances also if you just provided all the resources. Like here's what I was working with, and I think that would be really awesome.
I think one like smaller thing about notation, which of course you've done a nice job of making this very clear from your own hand, but I think some of the rhythms I wasn't totally sure with the rhythms with the bird calls, and I know there's some definitely ad libitum to that you've written in, but if you want those rhythms a lot, you want the integrity of them to be like very literal, I would say make sure you take a fine-tooth comb to the pen personship there and make sure that they are very very clear.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Looking at the instructions. Yeah, I like the bird names and the tool names as sort of like expressive markings or prompts for the mood. That's really good. This is, you may not take this as a good thing, but I thought of it as I was looking at it, and I was like, it's a little Harry Potter, some things that like, but you're talking about magical realism too, and I'm like, there's an element of magic that's really lovely in the you know, Latin names for the birds and everything that and the very specific tools that is really lovely.
It was our little joke. It made me giggle a lot. I was like, only we know, you know.
Yes.
Sointu, what I'm curious, what composers do you listen to or admire or what have you?
I mean, I'm trying to listen to just as much people as possible, but I think just to name some favorites, probably like Kaya Saryaho, Yanis Xenakis, Cecil Taylor, Clara Yanata, Unsuk Chin, and Anshuan Je, and Beat Fur, and Jacob Collier, and yeah, like people like that.
You spanned the universe, basically. That's great. That's that's wonderful. There was a composer that came to mind. Oh, now they've escaped me. It'll come back. Let's keep talking.
Okay.
Oh, one of the things that, because it's saxophone, one of the things that I thought of when I heard it was the ensemble Wet Ink. And Alex Minchek, the saxophonist who plays with them. This is his jam, this kind of thing. Yeah. I thought of them. I thought of something else. What was that? It lost me. I'll write you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions for Sarah in terms of saxophone things or questions about your work? Let's start there.
I mean, I don't know, was there anything else in the score that or was there anything in the score that you found helpful or not helpful in like making it clear what it meant?
I don't think so. I think in all honesty, you've done a really fantastic, like the specificity that you offer, as far as like, even if you didn't intend for pitch content to be, or texture or density or anything like that, we could have a conversation all day about what your intent was behind these shapes and your markings. But to me, it was very clear, very specific. And I like that a lot. So again, some people may like less information, but I love it. And I really think it's been a long time dream of mine to play a piece by Saryaho that is for saxophone. I think I've missed the boat on that one. But maybe it can be a piece by Sointu and we can have that spirit there. But yeah, I think it's great.
Okay. Thank you.
Yay. Excellent. What else? What are you working on next? Do you have anything in mind for your next piece, Sointu?
Right now I'm working on a piece for orchestra, which is like fun. like interesting. Just like I like the idea of just having so many people to control. Yeah. So I'm working on just developing more the mathematical side of everything that I'm doing, because that's something I'm also very passionate in.
That's great.
Yeah.
How did you find that particular way of creating structure for yourself? Would you just kind of intuitively come to it, or?
I feel like the two seem just naturally connected to me. Like I often think of mathematics through music and of music through mathematics. And so it just sort of felt like the intuitive thing to do.
That's great.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yes.
They're definitely connected. Yep.
I will say,
Yeah.
Sointu, that with something so open-ended for interpretation, I really appreciate that you've done and been so specific with the form and duration and taken that approach, because I think it offers some confines in a situation where there is so much left for interpretation, if that makes sense. So
Yes. Best of both worlds. Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, good.
I know.
I think
Yeah, homework.
congratulations, Sointu,
Yeah,
on
thank
your
you.
beautiful
Yeah.
piece. Yay.
Thank you.
What a great evening.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button there for a second. Yeah, just echo everything that's been said. Beautiful job. Both pieces were such a pleasure to listen to. I think just real quick, if Chloe is still backstage, we can bring her back. Just, yeah, yay! So yes, one more round of applause virtually. Oh, can we leave Sointu on stage as well? If you're okay with coming back on stage. Oh, okay, I got it. So, okay. Oh, hello. Okay, we got it. We figured it out. I just wanted to have everybody on stage all at the same time, just in case, so each of us, particularly Alex and Sarah, get to talk to each of you. But if you had any questions for each other or any like thoughts you wanted to share, I mean, your pieces were both so impactful, but quite different. So if you had any questions or comments for one another, we have some time where you could do that if you want, and if not, that's okay. I'm putting you on the spot, so we can also just wrap up. Whatever you prefer.
I mean, hi Chloe. It was nice to also meet you and hear your piece. Yeah, it's always like really nice to just meet more composers around the world. So yeah, we should be in touch. I don't know.
Oh, for sure. And honestly, I loved your piece. It was great. And it was fantastic just to like hear you talk about like what inspires you. And I'm curious. I know you mentioned that you were going to write for orchestra. So what in particular are you thinking about like when you're writing that piece, especially since orchestras are on like a much larger scale? I feel like as far as creating sound worlds go, there's a lot more room for possibility.
Definitely. And that's also like one interesting thing about writing for orchestra. I think what draws me into it is yes, there are so many voices. There's a lot you can do with structure. So one thing that I'm working on within the piece is just like, yes, there are so many strings. So I have like 11 violins or something, and they all have like different parts by themselves. So then I can create really detailed structure where each line is moving, stuff like that. Yeah. I don't know, what kind of stuff are you working on now?
So right now I'm working on a piece for 2 sopranos, 2 baritones, a speaker, and a piano, actually. And I'm focusing the text just around like news articles, and like I'm trying to create like this one through line as to like how media like affects the public. So I'm trying to work on something that kind of has like a parallel like storyline almost.
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah.
Love
It was
it.
good to meet you. And yeah, We should be in touch. Just like, I don't know, I'll drop my email address.
All right, sounds great.
Yes.
We'll make it
We
happen.
can, yes,
We'll make
I
it
was going to
happen.
say, we'll make that happen. Yeah, I can't wait to hear both of those projects. That sounds really, really exciting. Yeah, well, thank you both so much for being here, for sharing your music, for writing music for this workshop. Thank you so, so much to Alex and to Sarah for your wonderful feedback and your playing. I will say just one more time, there's a link scrolling on the screen right now. You can learn more about our organization. And as a reminder, we do still have our end of year fundraising campaign that's going through the end of the year. Helps us do more events like this and give opportunities. So we would really appreciate it if you can, if you could donate. The donate link is now going across the screen. So thank you all for being here and for watching. And I think that's it. Have a great night.